But right now, I want to introduce Mitch. He's going to talk to you about nutrition from a dog and cat standpoint and talk about Munster Natural and some other things too. Mitch?
Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
Right goes forward, left goes back.
I'd like to start by telling Howard and Doug, thanks for having us. We've been working with them now for right at 14 years, and I've been with them now for 6. So most of those guys have known me since I was about this tall, including Tropical John as well. So many of you know John. He's been a big supporter of us as well. So what I'd like to do, pet food changes on a daily basis. Every year there's somewhere around 300 to 400 new brands introduced to the market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the common pet food trends, why they do them, why some of them are good, some of them are bad, and what Munster's doing to counter those trends. So first off, you'll see a lot of fresh meats in diets, exotic proteins, grain-free diets, limited ingredient diets, and weight loss diets. Where do we go from here? Well, we're going to start by talking about fresh meats. Fresh meats, when you look at a dog food bag, you're going to see fresh chicken, boneless chicken, fresh venison, bison, ingredients like that. Sounds great, right? The problem is when you cook these ingredients, you're taking out 80% or more of water. A lot of times when these fresh meats are transported, water is pumped into them to keep them frozen so that it's not a messy of a situation when they arrive at the plant. Now, another thing with fresh meats, it's not always consistent. When you have one product that is 80% water one time, 84% water the next time, when you go to cook that product, you don't know how much protein is actually in there because of the variance. It could be 100 pounds different of actual meat in the product when you're running 20,000 pounds of food at a time. Many times after you take the water out, it can be as low as the 10th ingredient in that bag of dog food. Because the way you list your ingredients in a bag of dog food, you go by raw weight before it's cooked. So if you're making a 4,000 pound batch of dog food and you're putting in 1,000 pounds of fresh meat, in actuality it's probably only 200 pounds, but because it is 1,000, it's the first ingredient on the list. And then a lot of times you'll see a cheaper ingredient slide in afterwards. Exotic proteins. The most common proteins that we've been using for probably around 30 to 40 years, chicken, beef, pork, and fish. Well, recently, when someone wants to develop a new dog food, they want to get a little bit of attention, they come out with an exotic protein. First one was bison, then venison, salmon, whitefish. Both of those are pretty acceptable and common, actually. But then you get to kangaroo and rabbit. Why? Because they're trying to solve a problem that's non-existent. But by having something special, they want to trick you into thinking it's actually a better protein source than what you're currently buying with your chicken or your beef or your lamb or your pork. So you're getting new proteins, same results. Grain-free diets have become very, very popular. I'm sure many of you guys have seen a lot of those out there. Not only are they popular, they're very pricey. So common ingredients for the past 30, 40 years, ingredients that we're able to buy local and put in the Munster Natural dog food. My dad has been working with a lot of the same farmers for, he's been there 39 years today. The feed mill itself, Munster Milling, has been there since 1932, and we've been working with some of the same family farms for 80 years now. And for 80 years, we've been buying wheat, corn, rice, barley, oats, and Milo locally. And I guess it's probably been about 10 years now that grain-free diets have become popular because people say, well, dogs don't eat grain. Dogs eat meat. But then they load the diet down with potatoes, sweet potatoes, tapioca, chickpeas, peas, and field peas. Well, what does the left side and the right side have in common? They're all carbohydrates. The difference is the sugar content. When you look at the ingredients on the left versus the right, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come in lower on the glycemic index. With the Munster Natural, when you look at our ingredient label, you're going to see first chicken meal because it's an honest label. When you use chicken meal, you know that it is the first ingredient because there's no moisture lost. Then you're going to see 4 to 5 grains on most of our products. And a lot of people say, whoa, 4 to 5 grains, are you kidding me? Well, it's the amount of grain you put in the food. So instead of putting in 1,400 pounds of rice or 1,400 pounds of potatoes, we may put in 250 pounds of corn, 250 pounds of wheat, 100 pounds of oats, and 100 pounds of barley instead of 900 pounds of one ingredient. So what you have multiple source carbohydrates, all ranking lower on the glycemic index. When you have less of something, you're less likely to be allergic to it. So if you give a child 25 Oreo cookies, what's going to happen? They're going to get sick. 2 or 3 combined with a balanced meal, nothing's going to happen. So even some dogs that are prone to have allergies to certain grains, certain ingredients, when they're given to them in a limited amount, they're not going to have that allergic reaction. But now you go into these stores and you see salmon and sweet potato or salmon and potato, and they say, my dog would never eat corn. Corn's a lot easier to get to than a potato buried 2 feet below the ground. You're not going to see a whole lot of wild coyotes out digging up potato fields. Doesn't happen. So that is the same as last slide. Then there's also limited ingredient formulas. Now what a limited ingredient formula is it's a kind of a scare sale. They say, well, your dog is allergic to this. You have to feed Colorado elk and field peas because most dogs will find that if they're allergic, right? 1 protein, 1 carbohydrate, 1 fat. It's an overload of 3 different ingredients. Eventually that's going to take its toll on the dog's body because there's a few things that don't change there. 1, the price is going to be astronomically high because they have a high margin in there. 2, there's 1 protein. Well, they want to be different, so they're going to use an expensive, rare protein that has very little anecdotal evidence as to whether or not it actually works. Carbohydrates. It's going to be heavy carbohydrates because the meat is expensive. And then there's going to be 1 fat. And now the fat's not as big of an issue because most of the time they're going to go back to using a chicken or beef fat. So carbohydrate levels don't change, just the number of ingredients. Then there are weight loss formulas. Anyone in here have a senior dog? Is that senior dog overweight? Has it ever been overweight? That's why it's not. A lot of dog food companies will come out with a senior diet, and it'll be a 17-18% protein and a 7 or 8% fat. And it's the same price as the other foods. But you think, you know what, it's a senior diet. There's got to be something special to it. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's just the protein and fat levels are lower. And what they tell you is it's less calories. Your dog's going to perform better, lose weight, because the calorie count is lower. Well, what happens, dogs are made to handle protein and fat, and they can efficiently handle carbohydrates somewhere around the 25-30% level. Anything over that, it's wasted. So when you have a 17-7, these dogs are getting loaded down with carbohydrates. When you have excess carbohydrates, it triggers a large insulin response. Insulin is in charge of 3 different actions in the body. It converts sugar to energy. It converts excess energy to fat. While it's doing that, it prevents existing fat stores from being broken down. So while Old Yeller here is on his senior diet, he's used all the carbohydrates that he can digest for energy, it starts turning into fat. Meanwhile, he's still hungry. But his body's not digesting existing fat stores for energy. It starts digesting protein because protein is easier to digest. Why God did that to us, who knows? But that's how it is. Companies continue to roll out low-calorie senior diets. About a year ago when we revamped our line, many of you guys have seen the new packaging in the stores, we actually raised the protein and fat of the senior diet. We also added glucosamine and chondroitin to it because many times the difference in the senior diet is not worth feeding. But by adding the glucosamine and chondroitin, as these dogs age, their joints start to suffer. They need something to help with the pain and to try and prevent the pain. So, where does Munster stand? We have a proven track record with current formulas for several reasons. Multiple source carbohydrates and avoid spurring a single source carbohydrate allergy attack. Proven protein sources that we've used for 40 years. An honest label with consistent results. And we believe that carbohydrates are the problem, not grains. We have a new product out. Many of you guys have seen it out in the front. We just rolled this product out. It's called Nolans Chophouse. Nolan is my son's name. He's the 5th generation of Munster Milling Company. I'm the 4th, my dad's the 3rd. What we did with Nolans Chophouse, we had the option, we have had a lot of people coming to us saying, when are you going to make it grain-free? When are you going to make it grain-free? When are you going to make it grain-free? But as you've seen, we don't believe that grain-free is the answer unless it is a low-carbohydrate grain-free. And until we can develop one of those, we're not going to roll out a grain-free. The average level of carbohydrates in a pet food is 39%. The average level of maximum carbohydrates in a canine or feline's diet by nature is 7.8%. Carbohydrate level in Nolans Chophouse is less than 5% carbohydrates, making the average carbohydrate level in most of your conventional pet foods 5 times higher than nature intended. See this cat over here? That is my cat, Stormy. We have a love-hate relationship. There's a few things that I'm not a fan of Stormy. When she was overweight, she had one spot in the living room where she would lay on her back because, 1, it eased the pain on her back, and 2, I think she liked to trip me in the middle of the night when I got up to get a glass of water. 3, I hate cleaning litter boxes with a passion, and she filled it up when she was at large. Well, we needed something to do. We had to help her lose weight because she was getting dangerously overweight. 20.5 pounds is roughly 40% over her 12.5 pound body weight. As Dad and I researched and consulted with various nutritionists, we decided it was time to come out with a raw diet. Now, there's a problem with raw diets. It takes up a ton of time in the freezer. It takes up a ton of space. You have to get the food out the day before to let it thaw, and it's a bloody mess, to be honest. So we came out with a raw freeze-dried diet. Raw freeze-dried removes all the moisture from the food, with the exception of about 4 or 5%. Allows you to keep it in your pantry for up to 1.5 years, but it has all the benefits of a raw diet. It has that high protein, high fat, lower carbohydrate diet that cats need especially. So I put Stormy on a diet, and 3.5 months later, she had lost 8 pounds. That is a significant amount of weight. That's like someone that weighs 200 pounds losing 80 pounds in 3.5 months. It doesn't happen. After she lost the weight, she became more energetic. She stopped laying on the floor. She stopped filling her litter box up as much. So it's been great for both of us. Dogs and cats have several different hormones in their body responsible for controlling blood sugar. They have 9 different hormones. 1 of them lowers blood sugar. 8 of them raise blood sugar. What does that tell you? By nature, dogs are supposed to eat a low-sugar diet. Insulin performs the 3 roles we talked about earlier. Now, when Stormy was overweight, I cut her food back, her dry kibble food, and she continued to gain weight or maintain her existing weight of 20.5 pounds. As soon as we switched her to the freeze-dried, it was an immediate change. Now, how does this work with the Munster Natural Diet? We talked earlier about the glycemic index. We talked about grain-free foods, we talked about limited ingredient foods, and we talked about your conventional pet foods. If you look on the left, you'll see potatoes, sweet potatoes, and tapioca. This is on a scale of 1 to 100. You see potatoes come in at 85. Most of your grain-free diets, potatoes, because they're cheap. Sweet potatoes, 61. Tapioca, 70. Our normally active bag of dog food, the green bag, the original bag, has corn and wheat in it, 60 and 41. So while people come out, they demonize corn, they demonize grains, it still maintains to be our best-selling, least problematic dog food that we've ever made. Look down a little farther, you'll see donuts, Mars candy bars, and French fries. all ranking below the grain-free items. Does that sound like something you should eat on a daily basis? Something you should throw into your dog foods bowl? No. Initially, corn and wheat were the problems, so companies left them for grain-free diets. Or actually, they left them for rice. Well, dogs continued to have the same problems, so grains were the problem. Companies left them for potatoes. Guess what? Dogs still had problems, so they went from potatoes to exotic proteins, because I thought, well, potatoes obviously aren't a problem, it must be the protein. Let's feed kangaroo. Well, as a direct result, excess carbohydrates, there's still problems, and you're still going to see crazy things developed out there. So, Munster Milling Company, we decided to not go the grain-free route. We decided to go the raw freeze-dried route, combined with our existing diets. I've got a 60-pound lab at home. People say, well, what does it cost to feed a grain-free diet to a 60-pound lab? She gets 1 cup of our adult chicken and rice dog food in the morning, and she gets 1 patty in the evening, or 1/3 of a cup of the beef tips or popcorn chicken. This comes out to about $1 a day for the freeze-dried food. At the same time, you're cutting the amount of dry food you have to feed in half, and you have a healthier dog. Now, there's dog foods out there right now like Origin, Acana, $90 for a 30-pound bag of dog food, and they advertise to have all the exotic proteins that we listed over there. Their protein and fat level, though, still is not above a 28-18, which is what our puppy food is. They may have 1 or 2 that are, but for the most part, it's just the same game, and they just use exciting ingredients. So in conclusion, when a company follows fads and trends instead of scientific evidence, they're not finding solutions, they're just finding buyers. And when those buyers have problems with that product, they come out with a new one, with a new ingredient, with a new fad. We put animals first, not fads. We use scientific research when producing new products and not demographic-based focus groups. Your dog or cat will be healthier on products for those reasons. Thank you for your time. You got a question? Well, the great thing about it, you don't have to rehydrate it. You can feed it as is. Most of your conventional pet foods that your dog's been eating for years and years is less than a 10% moisture. This food happens to be less than 5%, so you want to keep plenty of fresh water. For cats, since cats are a little bit more finicky when it comes to drinking water, I do recommend soaking it in water. I feed my cat 1/3 cup at a time, and I normally put about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water. I let it soak for about 20 minutes, and then I give it to her. So it's optional for the most part. Anything else?
And you've got samples out there for them.
Yes, we do have samples. Yes, ma'am? Okay. As of right now, since we just rolled this product out, we probably have 15 to 20 stores here in Dallas that are carrying it. We will be adding it to our online store within the next week or two. And as you can imagine, shipping on a 1-pound bag is not very expensive. So we can ship it easily online, or you can call us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it.